of Jeremiah, not trying to rush our way through it, but kind of working through. We are in Jeremiah chapter 40 this morning. We have a handout in the back on the little table for chapter 40 and 41 if you're interested in picking one up. There's also 42 and 43 there. I do not anticipate, with the pace that we've been going through this, that we will get to chapter 42 today. Most of the time, if we can get through one chapter or most of a chapter, maybe a little bit over a chapter, that's kind of what we've been averaging most days that we've been studying through this. But you can pick that up. We've gotten our way through about the first 6 verses of Jeremiah chapter 40, so that's where we'll pick up here in just a minute. I'm going to save most of our announcements. We'll have more announcements, obviously, before we begin our worship service this morning. But I did want to mention a couple of things. Obviously, Betty is not here, Betty Bailey. She's coming into her last week of all of her radiation and chemotherapy, treating her cancer. It's been rough the last couple of days, and so she's actually going into the hospital this morning to try to get some IV fluids and try to kind of stabilize that. So David's with her. We want to be mindful of that. You might notice Miss Peggy is not here, and she's almost always here. She had a fall last night. She hurt her head and her knee. She did go to the doctor to get that checked out. The head injury is fine, the knee is not. And that's why she's not here this morning as well. There may be a few others, but I did want to make you aware of those. And we might have some updates. Barbara's still planning to be here for services and might have an update on Peggy at that time. But kind of wanted to share what we knew in those situations. Don't really have other updates. Again, we have a few more that are not here yet, but sometimes they just show up a few minutes later. It might be here in time for worship. But I wanted to make you aware of that. All right, let's go ahead and start with a word of prayer, and then we'll get back into Jeremiah chapter 40. Our Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning. We do thank you so much for the blessings that you give to us. We thank you for this beautiful day of life that we have, and we do thank you for the measure of strength that we have and the health that we have, and those of us who are strong enough and able to meet this morning and have this time together where we can spend time in your word. We thank you so much for our brothers and sisters and the encouragement that they give us. We thank you for your word, the guidance that it gives us, that you have shared your mind and your heart with us. And we ask that you would be with us this morning as we study again from the book of Jeremiah, that we would learn from the things that your people experienced, and we would learn what we should be and what we shouldn't be, and that we would put these things into practice in our lives. We do ask that you would be with those that we mentioned and all of our number that aren't able to be here this morning. Please be with Sister Betty as she's struggling through these treatments. Help her to have some comfort and relief, and we do ask and pray, Father, that the treatments would be successful in treating her cancer. We ask you to be with Sister Peggy as she's also recovering from an injury, and others that are battling with long-term illnesses and injuries and physical struggles. Father, we know that the spiritual things are what's most important, but we also know how hard it is at times when our bodies hurt and when we deal with illness. And so we ask that you would comfort them and strengthen them, and if it be your will, that you would heal them and help us to be a comfort and a strength to them as well. Please bless us in our efforts this morning to glorify you in all that we do, and please forgive us of our sins. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, as I mentioned, we left off in Jeremiah chapter 40, and we had already covered the first 6 verses, which really detailed some of where Jeremiah was at the beginning of the chapter and why. And again, Jeremiah is not necessarily, is not in chronological order. Sometimes a few chapters are in chronological order. Sometimes it jumps around. Sometimes it jumps around quite a bit. And we'll go back years and years and years, and we'll jump forward years and years and years. We had gotten to this time period where finally we had a record in Jeremiah chapter 39 of the fall of Jerusalem, something that Jeremiah has been talking about his entire ministry, that the city would fall to the Babylonians and that they would go into captivity. He's been telling the Jews through all of this that their only chance of really prospering or living or surviving was to surrender to the Babylonians. And of course that was resisted. The kings did not listen to him, and we saw the consequences of all of that. And there was a little bit of a discussion about Jeremiah being protected and left behind in chapter 39, but then when we get into chapter 40, it's kind of picking up the historical narrative again, and we're told that Jeremiah was in Ramah with the exiles who were being deported at that time. So initially, after the city fell, they took everybody who was left, except for who? Who was left behind? The poorest of them were left behind, but anybody who was anybody is kind of being taken into captivity. The poorest are going to be given some lands, and they're allowed to farm and stay in the land. Jeremiah being taken with them. He was somebody. Jeremiah owned property. Jeremiah was somebody who had some status. So he apparently was initially being taken with the exiles who were going to be deported. But the captain of the bodyguard, kind of talks about some of this. By the way, we do have this statement once again from a Gentile, from somebody who's not one of them. Why did Jerusalem fall? He makes the comment that this has happened to you because you have sinned against your God and you did not obey him. Now, whether that's a statement of genuine faith, if he's some sort of a believer in Yahweh, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, of the Old Testament, the New Testament, the one true God, or that's just being said, they might say that to any conquered people. Your God turned against you, your God turned you over to us. His statement is correct. Why did this happen? This happened because you sinned against the Lord, because you sinned against God. You did not obey him. And then he told Jeremiah that he could come or stay. It's up to him. Jeremiah, you can come with us to Babylon if you want to come back to Babylon. You can stay in Judah if you want to stay in Judah. And we're told Jeremiah decides to stay behind. He goes to meet Gedaliah at Mizpah, 8 miles north of Jerusalem, at the watchtower. And again, that's where Gedaliah is going to kind of set up his center of governing. By the way, why wouldn't you do that in Jerusalem? Jerusalem's gone. They burned everything. They tore down the walls. It's been completely destroyed. So you're like, oh, he's meeting him 8 miles north of Jerusalem. Why is he meeting him there? Well, that's where we've kind of moved the government to. It's 8 miles north of Jerusalem now because there's nothing left in Jerusalem. And that's kind of where we left off. Any other comments or questions on that before we kind of pick up again? We'll read here in a minute verses 7 through 12, and I have some more questions, and you might have some comments on that. I don't think it was mentioned in class. I think it was mentioned after class. I'm getting too old to remember what happens in class and after class, and sometimes some of you guys come up and make comments after class and I go, that was great. Why didn't you say that in class? But the idea of Jeremiah actually choosing to go back. Did we really talk about that much in class? I think someone came up and made an observation afterwards that they were still kind of amazed at that. And why? What do you think about that? Jeremiah is given the option, hey, you can come to Babylon, we'll take care of you, we'll protect you, we'll provide whatever you want. Nebuchadnezzar's obviously kind of fond of Jeremiah at this point, because Jeremiah's been saying, surrender, 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 give in to the Babylonians. Or you can go back to these people, and how had these people treated Jeremiah? Pretty bad. His whole ministry, he's been rejected and persecuted, and they wanted to kill him. At times thrown into cisterns, locked up in guardhouses and courtyards, and he goes, yeah, I'm going back. What do y'all think about that? Any thoughts or comments? Or yeah.
Well, maybe because everything he said came true at that point. I think that I don't know if I'm going to be doing anything terrible for him after that.
Okay.
All that he went through, and he stayed
okay.
on everything. So
yeah.
Why would he be afraid to go anywhere after this? They were just all conquered, and the person who did the conquering allowed him of all of them to do what he wanted.
Sure. And there could be that level. Now, it's interesting you comment that you make there, because we'll get into this a little bit more, but you might think, well, surely at this point the people have learned the lesson, right? No. I mean, after all of this, they're going to listen to a guy like Jeremiah now. I mean, everything he said has come true, and everybody else was a liar. And so, certainly, if Jeremiah now says some things, they won't. But he does. Jeremiah's protection has always really come from the Lord in all of these things. Yeah, David.
Well, the fact that he went back, he believed in God, and I think that he thought that maybe there is some hope, or whatever. But I don't think I don't see how he would be afraid of it at that point.
Okay. I don't know if fear is the total motivator, but that's a really good point. Kevin?
Something that you've been accused of before this point is like betraying the people and like wanting to run off into the arms of Babylon. So if he did take the offering, he did go to Babylon and was treated well, then the people might look at that and go, see, we were right. He did betray us and he did run off to Babylon like we thought.
Okay. There could be some element of that. He's been accused of being a traitor. He's been accused even at one point when he's trying to go out and check out some land, and they say, no, he's trying to sneak out. He's going over the Babylonian side of things, Yeah, that could be if there's if this is his judgment, his decision. Again, we're not told much about it right here. Like, did God say go back to them, or did God say go here? Obviously, Jeremiah would have done whatever God said to do. But if this is his judgment, we might speculate that could be something that he's thinking here, Josiah.
There's no place like home. But he probably doesn't want to go away, because when we go on vacations, when we come home, there's a comfort that we feel again when we come home. There's a comfort level that he has, even though Jerusalem is destroyed. It's where he has his routines, his life is there.
Okay.
It's not in Babylon.
Okay. Beth?
It reminds me of what is said in Moses in Hebrews 11. And Jeremiah here is choosing to stay behind God's ruined city and lament its loss and suffer rather than live well in Babylon and enjoy its fleeting pleasures.
Okay. And you do wonder, if he had chosen to go to Babylon there, I mean, the indication seems to be, hey, he's going to be just fine. He probably had a better life in Babylon than he ever had in Jerusalem, because of how he'll be treated differently by the Babylonians and what he could enjoy out of life. But no, he chooses to stay here. Natalie?
I feel like there are two things that really stick out to me in this decision of Jeremiah. First is the character of God that's revealed. A lot of what Jeremiah is like a demonstration of God's heart towards his people. And this is like, in my mind, the story that demonstrates what it means to be long-suffering. He goes back and continues suffering with the people even more after he'd already been suffering with them for so many years. He won't abandon them, and that's exactly what God does for his people. Secondly, I think it's really interesting how it reveals Jeremiah's character, because throughout the book there are quite a few instances where Jeremiah is like questioning, almost like, not like fighting against, but he's like really wrestling with God's instruction for him, his call to be a prophet, the people's lack of obedience, all these different things, and some of his prayers, like, some of the language is really strong, that he's like, what are you doing? This isn't worth it. I wish I wasn't a prophet. I hate this, that. But then this story, it's almost framed as like Jeremiah, like one of the first times that he has true freedom. Like, he's freed from the people he's no longer in captivity. He's like given the option to go wherever he wants. And it doesn't even say that God gives him a specific instruction. So Jeremiah, even though throughout the whole book he'd been wrestling against God and like seeming like he wishes he could reject the call for him to be a prophet because it involves so much suffering. Whenever he has a moment that he gets to choose, he does what God wants for him to do. It's almost like the sort of like whenever Jesus talks about the one who says, yes, I'll do what you want, Lord, and then doesn't do it, or Father, and then doesn't do it, versus the son who says, no, I won't, and then goes out to the field to work. Like Jeremiah, his heart was wrestling against his call, but whenever he had a moment to choose, he chose to be obedient and continue to be a prophet to God's people.
Okay, that's an interesting point, bringing in there. By the way, when you talk about when he finally kind of has his freedom to do whatever he wants, by the way, that doesn't last very long. All of a sudden he's going to start to be forced to do things by others. Again, in some ways, that was so much of his life where he's been locked up and pushed away and other things related to that. Sam?
Yeah, maybe it's possible that he remembers what is the promise, like chapter 33, where God does promise to restore to us.
Restoration.
Restoration. So maybe he's like, maybe he doesn't, he might not know when that happens, so he might want to be a part of that.
Okay. Interesting point. All right. Any other comments on that? See, that's why those comments need to be made in class and not after class. No, that's great points that we bring in there. Daniel?
If you read Lamentations,
Yeah.
which I guess we don't know that Jeremiah wrote that, but whoever wrote it, and maybe likely Jeremiah, he has a love for his country, and for Jerusalem and Judea, and for God. But he's kind of like a man without a country right now.
Yeah, sure is.
Over there, the Jews hate him. In Babylon, here, the Jews hate him. I wondered why he would make that choice, but I don't think we know 100%.
Right, we don't. Yeah, and really nothing is said about it. I mean, he just comes back and does that. But we do find him, so much of his life, and again, known as kind of the weeping prophet, so much of his life, he was pretty alone. He's telling the people what God said to say, and they don't like it, they don't listen. He doesn't have a lot of allies through all of this. We have Baruch in there. We've had Ebed-Melech, the Ethiopian eunuch. in there. There's a couple of people that kind of stand with Jeremiah, but not much when it comes to the life that he's living in service to God. Great points. Let's go ahead and pick up. Let's read verses 7 through 12. And once again, we have a rule in this class. If you do the reading, you get to decide the pronunciation of the names. So there'll be a few names in there that nobody can argue with you. You're like, I did the reading. This is how it's pronounced. I know those letters aren't in there, but that's how I pronounced it. So who wants to read 7 through 12 for us? Yeah, go ahead. Jude.
When all the captains of the forces in the open country and their men heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah the son of Ahikam governor in the land, and committed to him men, women, and children, those of the force of the land who had not been taken into exile to Babylon, they went to Gedaliah at Mizpah. Ishmael the son of Nethaniah, Johanan the son of Kareah, Sariah the son of Tanhumeth, the sons of Ephi the Netophithite, Jezaniah the son of the Maacathite, they and their men. Gedaliah the son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, swore to them and their men, saying, Do not be afraid to serve the Chaldeans. Dwell in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it shall be well with you. As for me, I will dwell at Mizpah, to represent you before the Chaldeans who will come to us. But as for you, gather wine and summer fruits and oil, and store them in your vessels, and dwell in your cities that you have taken. Likewise, when all the Judeans who were in Moab, and among the Ammonites, and in Edom, and in other lands, heard that the king of Babylon had left a remnant in Judah, and had appointed Gedaliah the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, as governor over them, and all the Judeans returned from all the places to which they had been driven, and came to the land of Judah, to Gedaliah at Mizpah. And they gathered wine and summer fruits in great abundance.
All right. So there we get the establishment again of how this governor Gedaliah, under Gedaliah's reign, Nebuchadnezzar has taken away, and we're told once again, all but the poorest of the land, but they come up. He's made Gedaliah governor in their place, and they're kind of reestablishing. Life is going to continue on here in Judah. I had one of the questions, who else went to Gedaliah? We had Jeremiah going to Gedaliah, but when we start reading through this, who are we told came to him? Yeah, there's a bunch of names of people. I do find it interesting in verse 7. What does it say? All the commanders of the forces that were in the field, they and their men, heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, over the land, and put the land under his men, all of them. So they came to Gedaliah. And so there's mention made of the commanders of the forces in the field that had heard this. I don't know what to make of that, unless these are some leftover commanders from Zedekiah's army, that when Jerusalem fell and people are scattering and people are running all over, you've got Jews in hiding around in different places. Nebuchadnezzar is trying to round up all of them that have much worth, but there's still some around. We'll have some others. You mentioned those that were in Moab and those that were in Ammon, and there's some Judeans. Now, my translation says Jews. I think the implication, people from Judah, they are Jews, but they had lived in Judah. Judah has now fallen, but those people of Judah that had kind of run off and hidden in different places, they hear that, we're going to we're still going to have Judah. We're still going to have our nation. It's been placed under Gedaliah, who's a governor who answers to Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. But they're coming, and they come to talk to Gedaliah. They come up to hear what Gedaliah has to say. We have a new ruler. How are things going to go now that the Babylonians have taken over? And what did Gedaliah tell the people to do? There's a couple things in there. What's the essence of it? Is it going to be okay? Well, it says it's going to be okay if you serve Babylon. Don't be afraid of serving the Chaldeans. They're not going to come in and kill us. They're not going to do these horrible things to us. It's going to be okay. You just live your life. Do what you need to do. He gives a little bit more about this. I'm sitting up here at Mizpah, and this is my new center of government, and I'll be able to meet the Chaldeans, Babylonians that come. There'll be times where they're going to want to come and visit. They're going to want to probably collect taxes and whatever else they're doing. And so I'll be up here and I'll interact with the Chaldeans, Babylonians, kind of on your behalf, so that you can just plant your fields and harvest your food and just live life. Just kind of relax, okay? Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay under the Babylonians. Okay? questions or comments on that? And then I've already hinted at this, but I had a question. What happened in Jeremiah 40, verse 11 and 12, down there near the end? And that's where we're told, well, that all these other Jews or Judeans or citizens of Judah, there's kind of this remnant that had been scattered in different places, and they kind of come back. So you almost have a miniature gathering in of a remnant, even in these days. Now, that's not the one that Jeremiah is really talking about that will come back from captivity, and that's not even what gets foreshadowed with the gathering of all the people in the gospel. But there's kind of this moment where, okay, people are coming back in, and all these people are coming to Gedaliah, and maybe it appears like things are going to be okay for those who are left here. The worst part of it's over. The Babylonians have won. We're going to be okay in these things. Comments, questions, observations. Just a little bit of a historical narrative there. I do think I find it interesting that the commanders of the forces are still out there, and there's others that come in, and Gedaliah is kind of setting himself up. Just follow the Babylonians, and we'll be all right. All right, let's read the rest of this chapter. It's just 13 through 16. Let's read chapter 40, verses 13 through 16. Anybody? Natalie?
Now Johanan, the son of Kareah, and all the leaders of the forces in the open country came to Gedaliah at Mizpah and said to them, do you know that follies the king of the Ammonites has sent Ishmael the son of Nethaniah to take your life? But Gedaliah son of Ahikam did not believe them. Then Johanan the son of Kareah spoke secretly to Gedaliah at Mizpah. Please let me go and strike down Ishmael the son of Nethaniah. No, why should he take your life so that all the Judeans who gather about you be scattered, and the remnant of Judah will perish? But Gedaliah son of Ahikam said to Johanan the son of Kareah, you shall not do this thing, for you are speaking falsely of Ishmael.
Okay. Again, it's only a few verses, and it's pretty straightforward on this. What warning did Johanan give to Gedaliah in this chapter? How did Gedaliah respond to this? Well, what's the accusation that he makes? This guy, Ishmael, he's been sent by the king of Ammon, and he is going to kill you. So he talks about Ishmael's conspiracy, or the king of Ammon's conspiracy. He sent this guy. This Ishmael is not someone who's loyally trying to serve you, Gedaliah. Now, how they do this, or how they found about that, we're not told. But he comes and says, this guy, and we'll have more about that when we get into chapter 41, he's part of the royal family. Ishmael, we've had his lineage given. He does tie back to the family of David. He wasn't in direct line for the king, but everybody who's in direct line for the king is gone. And so this is where you can kind of take a sidestep over, because usually, it's the firstborn to the firstborn to the firstborn, but if you're back there a little ways and you were a secondborn or a thirdborn, if that line dies out, they oftentimes even today, they just back up and then move over the line and come down. He did have apparently some claim that he could, be on the throne, that he could be a ruler over Judah, he could be a ruler over God's people based off of his royal descent. But Johanan comes and says, just let me kill him. This guy's plotting against you, let me kill him. And of course, Gedaliah says, no, you're lying. I'm not going to listen to you, you are telling a lie. I don't know if there's much else to say about that. Anybody have anything else they want to bring out from that at this point? That's just kind of laying the groundwork. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Ishmael still certainly had a motive if he was felt like the actual lineage has been killed off or taken into captivity, and now I've got my opportunity, or he thinks that the Gedaliah is a traitor for certain of the Chaldeans, certainly like the tax collectors in Jesus' time, and so on. So.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, here he's been installed by the Babylonians, the Chaldeans. He's not even, really in this position as one of us. I'm a more legitimate heir. I should be on the throne. We should have our king, not a governor that answers to the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, a puppet of some foreign entity. And there's lots of reasons why it would be easy to see someone doing that. Now, for whatever reason, he doesn't see it. It says you're lying. He doesn't accept it. I don't know. Is that just, sometimes people don't want to see it. Was there much of a reason to believe this is what was going to happen? I don't know in advance. Now, and if you haven't read ahead in Jeremiah, you don't know either. Okay, there's this, he just says, this guy's out to get you, and no, he's not. So we're not going to do anything about it. Natalie?
Something, and this is kind of backing up a little bit, but I think I knew comment about this last week, so I'm repeating myself a little bit. But it's really interesting in verse 12. If you stopped at verse 12 and didn't keep reading, you would think that this was like a pinnacle moment for the nation of Israel in a sense. Like this is such a hopeful moment.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, I don't know that much about like warfare tactics or anything like this, but so it's a little bit speculating. But I'm assuming that in the midst of your capital city being besieged and the entire nation essentially being destroyed by an opposing army, like you're not doing great about keeping up with your planting and tending the ground, and yet God blesses them with this like amazing abundance of fruit. Like it's like an echo of the year of Jubilee promise. It's like, okay, the ground rested because the people were being, caught up in trying to fight the Babylonians, and then God blesses them with this amazing abundance, like the poor are given land, the captives are freed, all these amazing things throughout chapter 40, and then you're like, get to this new leader that's been appointed, and I wonder if part of him's like, everything's like pretty, like, I mean, obviously, a bunch of people have been carried into captivity, like, we're under the Babylonians, but like, we're being blessed by God in this time, like, the ground is fruitful, and people are able to come together and live even though the capital has moved. And so I wonder if part of him was just like, I mean, reading this, I would see him and I'd be like, okay, so like God is blessing them through this difficult thing.
Sure.
So it makes it all the more tragic whenever you keep reading and find out, like, oh no, this is not it.
It turns pretty dark here pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point. And again, from his standpoint as a leader, I mean, he may not want to see it. We've had a history in this nation sometimes of presidents who just feel like things are going pretty good, and within their own White House, they think everybody loves them, they think everybody's happy, everybody's good, and sometimes those presidents are shocked to find out later that a lot of people didn't like them. I mean, sometimes they're oblivious as they go into a re-election and then get just massacred in the polls in a different way, but they're like, I thought everybody loved me. I thought everything was going great. It's the economy, stupid. Here, like you said, they're harvesting wine and summer fruit, and it's we're good. Everything's good. To not see what's coming around the corner. But that's a great point. All right, let's go ahead. In chapter 41, we're going to read a bigger chunk of it. We're not going to break this into smaller pieces. We'll have a few things to say, but as this starts to carry forth, let's read 41, verses 1 through 10. 1 through 10 of chapter 41. Who wants to read that for us this morning? Yeah, go ahead.
Now it came to pass in the 7th month that Ishmael the son of Nethaniah, the son of Elishama, of the royal family and of the officers of the king, came with 10 men to Gedaliah, the son of Iachim, at Mizpah. And there they ate bread together in Mizpah. Then Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, and the 10 men who were with him arose and struck Gedaliah, the son of Iachim, the son of Shaphan, with the sword, and killed him, whom the king of Babylon had made governor over the land. Ishmael also struck down all the Jews who were with him, that is, with Gedaliah at Mizpah, and the Chaldeans who were found there, the men of war. And it happened on the 2nd day after he killed Gedaliah, when as yet no one knew it, that certain men came from Shechem, from Shiloh, and from Samaria, 80 men, with their beards shaved and their clothes torn, having cut themselves, with offerings and incense in their hand, to bring them to the house of the Lord. Now Ishmael the son of Nethaniah went out from Mizpah to meet them, weeping as he went along. And it happened as he met them, that he said to them, Come to Gedaliah the son of Iachim. So it was when they came into the midst of the city that Ishmael the son of Nethaniah killed them and cast them into the midst of a pit, he and the men who were with him. But the 10 men were found among them who said to Ishmael, Do not kill us, for we have treasures of wheat, barley, oil, and honey in the field. So he desisted and did not kill them among their brethren. Now the pit into which Ishmael had cast all the dead bodies of the men whom he had slain because of Gedaliah was the same one Asa the king had made for fear of Baasha, king of Israel. Ishmael the son of Nethaniah filled it with the slain. Then Ishmael carried away captives all the rest of the people who were in the Mizpah, the king's daughters and all the people who remained in Mizpah, whom Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, had committed to Gedaliah the son of Iachim. And Ishmael the son of Nethaniah carried them away captive and departed to go over to the Ammonites.
All right. So as you continue reading through it, again, this conspiracy that the governor had been warned about certainly is coming to fruition. And so we're told it's about 7 months into his reign as governor. What's Ishmael do in the opening verses? Again, I don't know that I need to wait for someone to just answer that, but he takes 10 men with him and he strikes him down. I mean, he comes here to Mizpah and he kills him. And he, wipes him out. They strike him down. Then this isn't the end of the violence. What other acts of violence did Ishmael commit in this chapter? Well, he moves on. I mean, he's capturing and killing everybody. I mean, by the way, at the end, where is he heading? Going back to Ammon, going back to the Ammonites, going back, and that was the accusation that Johanan had made. The king of Ammon had sent him here to kill you. I mean, this is not, he's coming down here, and and so there's a little bit of a raiding that takes place. I don't know what to make of everything that's said. The next day after this killing takes place at Mizpah, where he's wiped out some people and he's obviously captured others, that we read about that more here in a minute. There's some people, nobody's heard about it yet. Nobody knows that the governor's dead, and here come 80 people that seem to be coming to worship. I mean, it says they're trying to they're bringing an offering for the house of the Lord, but they're coming to Mizpah. And there's some things that said about they're shaved, but they've cut themselves. I don't know if we have a blending of some of the pagan practices at that time, along with some of the worship of Yahweh at that time. I mean, they're bringing some offerings. It's supposed to be for Yahweh, for God, but they're coming to Mizpah, they're coming to the governor. There are certain aspects of their appearance that are kind of strange. But Ishmael goes out there and first kind of greets them. And I mean, he's weeping. He says, hey, come see the governor. Come on in. And then turns on them and just starts to slaughter them as well. Slaughtering anybody else that's around there that, has come up for these reasons. Some of them save their own lives. I had a question about this in, chapter 41 and verse 8. And they just kind of say, hey, we've got some stuff we'll give you. We've got some honey that's hidden. We've got some other things. Bribes go way back. So don't kill us. We'll give you our stuff. We got some stuff in hiding. You don't know where it is, so you got to leave us alive, and we'll take you to where we've stashed some of this stuff, and we'll give it to you. And they apparently get their own lives spared. But then we have Ishmael taking captive the remnant to go up to Ammon. So anybody that was left there, anybody he hasn't killed, anybody that he's come in contact with, he's rounded them all up, and they're heading off, and they're going to go back to the king of Ammon and bring them up to him. Comments or questions on that? So not a great moment for them. Yes, sir.
If somebody says Ishmael's out to kill you, and he comes over for dinner.
Ishmael and 10 of his best friends.
Even if you don't believe him, maybe have a backup plan to have some guards on standby, just in case.
Yeah, that's right. You would think so. I mean, he's been warned. By the way, it's not inconsistent. This is different because this is a governor that was appointed by the Babylonians, and this is just some guy that's coming and telling him. But the whole book of Jeremiah has a history of people being told things and just ignoring it. How many times has Jeremiah gone to a king and said, here's what's going to happen? And they're like, I don't think so. Not going to do anything about that. Not going to react in that way. You're making this up. But it's a great point. Okay, so kind of descends into some darker days. By the way, I don't know how significant it is. In the midst of this, he takes all the dead bodies and he throws them into a cistern. And we're told where this cistern came from. And it says it's the cistern that King Asa had made when he was warring against Baasha, the king of Israel. So we're going back to I think it's around like 1 Kings 15 or something like that. There's war that takes place between the southern kingdom of Judah and the northern kingdom of Israel. And there's the construction of this big cistern as part of the defenses that kind of make Mizpah able to stand strong as kind of an outpost of the southern kingdom against the northern kingdom when they come down. Some have said there's an irony here that this cistern was built to help sustain life, and it's filled with dead bodies. It becomes a place of death. But I also feel like as we're reading through this, this just feels like something from the Kings and Chronicles. There's people killing kings and killing other kings, and it reads a whole lot more with like what we read in the northern kingdom of Israel That just started happening over and over and over again. Somebody becomes king by killing the previous king. Somebody becomes king in their place by killing them. Then their own servants kill them. Then somebody kills the servants. And, we've just kind of digressed back into this kind of political situation in Judah. That's not normally what was happening in Judah. That's more common what was happening up in Israel. But down in Judah, we had the family of David that continued to rule on the throne until the end here. But now it's just kind of digressed into this sort of action. Okay. Other comments, questions on that? We may actually get through 41. We may get into chapter 42. But I better not jump the gun on that. Let's go ahead and read verses 11. Yeah, let's read 11 through the end of the chapter, 11 through 18, the second half of chapter 41. Let's read 11 through 18. Kevin?
But when Johanan the son of Kareah and all the leaders of the forces with him heard of all the evil that Ishmael the son of Nethaniah had done, they took all their men and went to fight against Ishmael the son of Nethaniah. They came upon him at the great pool that is in Gibeon. And when all the people who were with Ishmael saw Johanan the son of Kareah and all the leaders of the forces with him, they rejoiced. So all the people whom Ishmael had carried away captive from Mizpah turned around and came back and went to Johanan the son of Kareah. But Ishmael the son of Nethaniah escaped from Johanan with 8 men and went to the Ammonites. Then Johanan the son of Kareah and all the leaders of the forces with him took from Mizpah all the rest of the people whom he had recovered from Ishmael the son of Nethaniah, after he had struck down Gedaliah the son of and children and eunuchs, whom Johanan brought back from Gibeon. And they went and stayed at Gur-Shempiah near Bethlehem, intending to go to Egypt because of the Chaldeans, for they were afraid of them, because Ishmael the son of Nethaniah had struck down Gedaliah the son of Ahikam, whom the king of Babylon had made governor over the land.
All right. So, when we talk about what's continuing here, it's just a continuation of this same type of political drama, this type of military drama. Who took up arms against Ishmael? What happened? Well, it's this Johanan again. He's the one that had come to Gedaliah and said, Ishmael wants to kill you. Gedaliah wouldn't listen to him. So after this happens and word gets out, these other Jews who were left down here in Judah, they round up any army that they can muster, and they go after Ishmael. We're going to go get him. We're going to go get our people back. These are the ones that were left in the land. Again, what started out as it seemed like a kind of nice story, as Natalie pointed out. They're settled in the land, and they're planting, and they're harvesting, and there's a great harvest, and they might have some sort of peace. And so they follow him, and then they kind of recapture them. So they go back and get the people back. And it says all those people that Ishmael had taken, when they see Johanan coming, and with his army, they rejoice and they kind of run to him. Finally, somebody's going to deliver us. They'd been taken by force away from Mizpah. They were being taken to Ammon into captivity. But Ishmael slips away with some of his men, and they go to Ammon. Johanan and the people come back. And then I had in question 14, what did Johanan and those with him prepare to do at the end of the chapter? And then I kind of asked why, and he does give a little bit of a why. What are they going to do? Where do they say we're going? Yeah, we're going to go to Egypt. Okay? They plan to return to Egypt. Let's go to Egypt. And what's the reason they give for going to Egypt? They're afraid of the Babylonians. Okay? Once the Babylonians hear what's happened, they installed a governor who's now been murdered. There's been all of this other conflict that takes place. They're not going to be happy about this. So when they come back in, they might think the rest of us who are left are either going to be captured or killed, or, I don't know what's going to happen to us. But our only hope at this point is to gather everybody together and to go back to Egypt. Comments or questions on that? I said we'll talk about this a little bit more as we get to the end of Jeremiah. But you do see some of this. We've already talked about a reverse exodus that's taking place here. We've had the king, his sons and servants. He was captured. His sons and servants were killed. His eyes were put out of Jericho. That was where they first started coming and conquer land. Jerusalem's been destroyed. The temple's been destroyed. They're going back to Egypt. That's their plan. This whole thing of them being the people of God appears to have failed at this point. Who had their hand up? Was it David?
I was just wondering, if you know that Ishmael's going to kill this, that Saul, what would be the reason why you just wouldn't go ahead and take them out, knowing the repercussions? Or is the fear if you do that, then that very same person that you're trying to protect may come and kill you? And
Sure.
I don't know, just,
Well, I think that's it. I mean, if you're an advisor to the king or the governor or the president, and you say, look, here's our enemy, we need to take them out, and that person says, no, you're lying, don't do that, and then you go ahead and take them out, then you can face the wrath of the governor himself. So if Johanan had acted on his own and just in some way went and killed Ishmael, yeah, it might have worked out better for Gedaliah, maybe, but not so well for Johanan if Gedaliah turned on him and said, I told you you were lying, and then you killed him anyway. Now you're the traitor, and I have you killed. So I don't know if that's it, but I think that's part of what
you just don't know what situation.
Yeah, kind of is. I mean, when they won't listen, there's only so much you can do. Yeah, do we have another comment over here?
Oh, my idea was, so now you said it though, but they're returning to captivity is basically what they're doing. But in 42, they do say something about asking of God to see what they're
Yeah.
doing. Which they finally do, which is good. I just read that.
Yeah, and we'll get to that here in a minute. I don't know how much we'll get into that, but I think we can make that comment. When we come into chapter 42, they are going to turn around and they're going to ask Jeremiah, hey, what should we do?
We forgot about God.
We forgot about God. What's God want us to do? And if you've read far enough ahead, though, you say, hey, that's great. And then Jeremiah tells them what God wants them to do, and they say, nope, we're still going to do what we want to do. We're asking what God wants us to do in hopes that God's going to say what we want to do. If God happens to agree with us, that's going to be great. We want to go to Egypt. Hey, what's God say? God says, nope, don't go to Egypt. I think we'll go with plan A still. We're supposed to go to Egypt. If God had said go to Egypt, then you can say, we're doing exactly what God wanted us to do. Which oftentimes people do that anyway.
And just to know the history of how God delivered them from the Egyptians in the first place, and then they don't want to follow through with that plan.
Yeah.
It's, sometimes we do the same thing.
It's tough to get Egypt out of your system, isn't it? And Egypt comes to represent the world in many ways. I mean, even as the followers of God, we've come out of the world, and it's tough to get the world out of us. There's always that little pull back to Egypt. There's always that little, I wasn't happy, but at least we had food.
It's like we all have our Egypt.
Yeah, we do. We have a spiritual Egypt that we have to overcome. That's constantly, Egypt was a place of plenty. Egypt was a place, even though you were enslaved, there's ways in which you can remember life as being better than it was back in Egypt. And sometimes we can remember a life of sin as being better than it was. At the time when we were in sin and we were captured by sin and we were enslaved by sin, we were miserable, we were without God, we didn't have any hope. But for some reason when we're rescued from that, you can look back and say, yeah, but it was pretty fun when I didn't have to go to church. It was pretty fun when I could do whatever I wanted to do and could engage in some sin, and we forget some of the consequences of those things, don't we?
Something that kind of stuck out to me is that it specifically mentions that they make the decision to go to Egypt whenever they're in the And it was just making me think, I don't know if this is absolutely true. I have to think about it a little bit more, but I think that in Matthew 2, the decision for them to Jesus' family go to Egypt to be spared is the only time where they're actually instructed to
Commanded, go to Egypt from Bethlehem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't really necessarily have a thought on that, but this seems to be the section where Moses had a conversation about whether they should or shouldn't go to Egypt, and then they choose to. Like, the Israelites are asked to go to Egypt, and Moses is telling them for a long time, but they don't return to Egypt. They go
Right.
into Canaan. So this is like the example of them having an extended conversation and then choosing to go there. So I don't know. I just think that's something interesting to think on in light of them being just a very
Yeah.
created by nature.
Yeah. And that's what, you do wonder sometimes in these where you have a narrative, and so much of these historical narratives, like in Jeremiah, there's just a lot of details that aren't given to us. And you wonder, well, why weren't we told that? Why weren't? And then there's little details that are given. And you go, okay, so that seems to probably be there for a reason. And sometimes we don't even always know why. I do think probably the mention of Bethlehem, other than just this happens to be the location where we are, is significant. Now, from a messianic standpoint, the foreshadowing of what we know about Bethlehem represents something big to us. But even to them, what was Bethlehem? That's the city of David. And that's why Mary and Joseph end up there during the census. This is where David's family is from. This is their king. This is of Israel, that they're supposed to, and they're there saying, we're out of here. We're giving up on Israel. We're giving up on this. We're going back to Egypt. But that's a great point. We may start, not Wednesday, but next Sunday, talking about that. Wednesday night we have our singing. So we'll resume here, heading into also chapters 42 and 43, which that handout's on the table. We'll start there next Sunday. Okay? All right. Appreciate your comments.